What if I told you the greatest pain of your life wasn't a mistake, but a calling? It sounds harsh, almost cruel, right? Who would choose to be born from a wounded mother, marked by silence, absence, or even rejection? Here's the paradox. What you've avoided most may be the key to discovering your true strength. Maternal wounds, heavy as they seem, carry a hidden map pointing to clarity, purpose, and even life mission. The problem is, most people don't see it. Most grow up believing inherited pain must be hidden, denied, or forgotten. But denial is like trying to put out a fire with gasoline. The more you run, the hotter it burns inside. The path isn't resistance. It's transformation. And that's the counterintuitive reward. When you start seeing pain as raw material, it stops being weight and becomes fuel for something bigger. Now imagine if what seemed your heaviest burden was actually the beginning of your personal alchemy. What if your mother's silent suffering was the spark for your own spirituality? Get ready, because the journey you're about to explore isn't obvious or superficial. It's a deep passage capable of showing how the densest pain can become the purest gold of the soul. Many people carry pain they don't even know where it comes from. It feels like it's embedded in their blood, passed down from generation to generation, like an invisible inheritance. A mother's pain is often not just hers. It's also part of the child who grows up amidst the emotional scars she couldn't heal. This inherited suffering doesn't always show up in big traumas, but in small actions, silences, and looks that say more than words ever could. Life, in a sense, places a heavy raw stone in each person's lap, waiting to be shaped. This pain is not a mistake, nor is it a punishment. It acts as latent energy, a dormant fuel waiting for the right moment to awaken. Think of a piece of coal under pressure and heat. It can become a diamond. In the same way, inherited suffering holds transformative potential that, if ignored, consumes, but if embraced, illuminates. This is where the journey of consciousness begins. Most people are never taught to see pain this way. Most try to escape it, anesthetizing themselves with distractions, empty relationships, or overworking. But pain is persistent, and the more you try to avoid it, the more it finds a way to show up. It's like an internal alarm that won't turn off until it's heard. Pain isn't an enemy. It can be a messenger carrying an essential message. Something must be understood, integrated, and healed. A simple example can be seen in families where a mother, hurt by rejection, becomes extremely controlling with her children. If that weight isn't recognized, it generates resentment and repetition. But if the child understands that the control stems from old pain, it can be transformed into awareness. Instead of repeating the pattern, they learn to cultivate freedom and love in their own relationships. Pain is raw material, but shaping it depends on the one who carries it. The biggest secret may be realizing that this hidden energy isn't there to destroy, but to shape. A mother's inherited pain is like an underground river, invisible at first glance but capable of moving entire landscapes. Those who learn to recognize this flow begin to understand that within what seemed like a burden, there is also power. And that's just the first step, because the next part is learning how to actually refine it, and that's where alchemy comes in. Every transformation starts with recognition. You can't change what you can't see, right? The first step is to face your pain with courage, without masks or disguises. Recognition means naming what happened, admitting that a wound exists. It's not about playing the victim, but about letting the truth surface even when it hurts, because that opens space for the next step. Then comes acceptance, and many get stuck here. Acceptance doesn't mean approving what happened or agreeing with past mistakes. It's about stopping the fight with reality and understanding that it happened and is part of your story. Resistance is like rowing against a strong current. The harder you push, the more exhausted you become. Acceptance is letting go of the oars and realizing you can use the river's strength to move forward. The third step is integration, and this is perhaps the most delicate part. Integration is welcoming a forgotten part of yourself, giving space to feelings that were rejected. Instead of cutting out pain, you bring it into your life story. It's like stitching torn fabric, turning the scar into part of the design. When you integrate, pain stops being the enemy and becomes an ally. Then comes transformation, where all that hidden energy takes a new shape. The pain that once paralyzed now turns into clarity, compassion, and purpose. It's like turning lead into gold, not by magic, but through a deep internal process. Those who go through this know the pain still exists, but now it serves as a bridge to something greater. Life, once heavy, starts to shine differently. almost like seeing colors that were invisible before. Of course, this process doesn't happen overnight. It requires practice, choices, and sometimes guidance. Some find support through therapy, others through spiritual practices, and others through transformative readings like Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And this is where Jung comes in, showing that the alchemy of the soul isn't just a metaphor. It's a symbolic map for inner transformation. Carl Jung saw alchemy not as a laboratory practice, but as a mirror of the human soul. To him, each stage described by medieval alchemists reflected what happens inside the psyche. Lead represented the heaviest, darkest parts of experience, while gold symbolized spiritual achievement and individuation. What seemed like an external quest for wealth was actually a map for inner self-discovery. Spiritual gold isn't something you acquire, it's something you awaken. Jung believed that within each person exists a spark of wholeness, hidden by wounds, fears, and conditioning. The alchemical process is about bringing that spark to the surface. It's not about adding something new. It's about revealing what was always there, waiting to be recognized. Interestingly, just as alchemists used furnaces and cauldrons, we also have our tools for transformation. For some, the fire comes through a personal crisis. For others, it appears in challenging relationships or significant loss. Life puts us in the symbolic furnace, asking us to burn what's false to reveal what's true. Jung's metaphor makes the process tangible, almost like a survival guide for the spirit. Looking deeper, the philosopher's stone, the ultimate goal of the alchemists, is nothing more than integration of the self. It's the moment when someone stops fighting their shadows and walks alongside them, aware of both strength and vulnerability. Spiritual gold emerges when pain is no longer an obstacle, but a tool. Suffering inherited from the mother becomes a key rather than a prison. The most inspiring part is seeing how this spiritual gold manifests in real life. Stories show that Jung's theory isn't just philosophy, it's living practice. People have transformed maternal pain into art, inspired communities, or healed others. These real examples give face, voice, and purpose to the alchemy of the soul. There are stories that seem to confirm the theory in real life. Take Frida Kahlo, for example. Marked by physical and emotional pain, she transformed her wounds into paintings that still touch millions today. Part of her intensity came from her complicated relationship with her mother, who projected demands and silences onto her. Suffering became paint, and paint became a mirror of the human condition. Alchemy in action. Another example is Maya Angelou, who experienced deep childhood trauma, much of it tied to maternal figures. Instead of letting these scars define her, she transformed them into poetry, music, and activism. Her voice not only found purpose, but became a guide for countless women carrying similar wounds. Pain didn't silence her. It gave her a tone that continues to resonate. You don't need to be an artist to experience this transformation. Many ordinary people turn maternal suffering into spiritual growth. Some find refuge in meditation, others in yoga, and others through practices like Buddhism or shamanism. Each method reorganizes pain, turning it into awareness and expansion. Some channel this weight into social causes. A woman who grew up with a violent or absent mother might become an advocate for abuse victims. Someone who experienced emotional neglect could start projects to support vulnerable youth. These concrete actions show how what once seemed an unbearable burden can turn into life purpose. What's most inspiring is that these paths are diverse. Art, spirituality, activism, or simply creating a family different from the one they had, all of these are expressions of spiritual gold. Maternal pain stops being just a personal wound and becomes a bridge connecting a person to the world. But the journey doesn't end there. The final stage is seeing the clarity, strength, and mission that emerge when pain turns to light. Once someone goes through this journey, they realize pain doesn't disappear magically. It takes on a new form. It becomes strength, almost like a muscle built from the weight of experience. What once paralyzed now becomes resilience. People discover they can handle situations that used to destroy them because they've learned to turn raw stone into polished diamond. This strength brings clarity. It's like a dense fog lifting, revealing a path that was always there but invisible. People start to see patterns, recognize choices, and understand themselves deeply. This clarity isn't arrogance, it's wisdom, knowing how to separate noise from what truly matters. It's the vision of someone who has walked through the valley of shadow and now sees the light without fear. From this clarity comes a life mission. Living is no longer just about surviving or repeating old stories. It's about putting your pain to work for something greater. Many become guides, teachers, artists, or therapists. Others simply live more consciously, inspiring without needing to speak. A mission isn't a career, it's a way of being, where every act reflects inner transformation. A simple example is someone who decides to create a family different from the one they had. A person who suffered from maternal emotional absence may become a present, loving, attentive parent. Someone raised in silence might become a communicator, sharing words that heal. Mission shows up in everyday choices, not just grand achievements. In the end, pain stops being an enemy and becomes an ally. The energy that once dragged you down now pushes you forward, like wind filling the sails of a boat. And while the process never fully ends, each cycle strengthens the certainty that life has purpose. Perhaps the most striking realization is that this journey can begin in the most unlikely place, a mother's wound. Now that you've walked this journey with me, the question is, what will you do with your pain? Will you keep carrying it as a weight, or will you start treating it as raw material for your own alchemy? Think about it. How many times have you unconsciously repeated patterns from your mother? And how many times have you avoided living your truth out of fear of those wounds? Life is offering you an invitation. Maybe now is the moment to accept it. Transforming pain isn't easy, but it's the only path to strength, clarity, and purpose. What can you do today, right now, to begin this process? Maybe write an unsent letter, start therapy, or simply admit to yourself what you've long denied. I want to hear from you. Which part of this reflection touched your soul the most? What stirred inside while listening to these words? Share in the comments. Your story might illuminate the path for someone else seeking meaning. And if this content resonated with you, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. That way, you not only continue learning, but also join a community of people transforming pain into purpose. The next step of your journey might be in a video you haven't even imagined yet.